Shoutout here. You guys really seem to enjoy my last guide on how to attack King's Row, and I wanted to do something in the same line today. The by far most requested map for this was Hanamura, since a lot of people have trouble both attacking and defending the map, so I wanted to give a quick outline and share some strategies on how you can more consistently attack this point. I need to give a quick little disclaimer. Hanamura in of itself is a very stupid map. For one, it's 2CP, and you know, it's kind of very choke-centric, which Blizzard is trying to do a lot. So by choke-centric, I mean, you know, the primary way of attacking is with this little choke over here. You know, you have this little window up here, but then again, it's, you know, it's not very consistent, right? But we will go over that window later. So first, we need to understand where the best spots are to defend. Now, most of the time, what you'll see is that one of the tanks is defending right here. Let's just mark it with like a little shield. If you have a Mei, which is still a very popular pick on Hanamura actually, she's usually standing here. And there are two spots that are very high ground heavy and that are used a lot. And it's for one up here. Now, the reason this spot is so great is because you can easily just drop down straight back onto the point. You have the big health pack back here, in case, you know, you get pressured. The only problem is that, you know, for one, you're pretty vulnerable from the window right here. And secondly, you aren't really at your effective range. For characters like Soldier, this is still a little bit too close. And for characters like Roadhog, this is way too far away. So, in my opinion, if you're playing something like Soldier and you would want to defend the first point, you should really start learning getting up to the roof up here. Now, for one, this is even high ground. You aren't as vulnerable from the window here because the enemies need to overextend quite a bit in order to attack you, at which point they become vulnerable to the people who are standing down here. The only problem is that it's kind of difficult to get up there. If you are running with a Mei, then she can simply boost you up, which is the easiest way. However, you can also use Soldier's rocket jump to get there. You just need to be careful because it damages you. I think you need 2 rocket jumps, so make sure to heal you up and make sure that you're quick enough to get up there. Now, this is with this side. Another popular position, mainly for support characters, is either on the high ground up here. Now, the problem with this is that it kind of covers vision over to the main entrance. So, only use this position in case, you know, you really have to go back. So, what you would usually do is one of the supports stands inside of this building. Usually this is very safe, because the enemies need to attack from an odd angle, and if there's a Reinhardt standing up here, then you're usually protected. There's also a small health pack, and you can obviously take the stairs in order to get up to this high ground here. So this is also something, so this spot is really good for characters like Mercy, for example. Mercy's heal beam attaches for 3 seconds, which means that if you just peek every 3 seconds, the beam won't get destroyed. So one of the things that a lot of Mercy players tend to do is they stand in this little building, they attach their beam to someone who is damaged, and then they just go behind the wall. And, you know, once they need to reattach it, they just peek out real quick, maybe select a new target, and then they go back. Now, in case they get dove, or in case the Reinhardt shield breaks and they tend to push in, they can just fall back, take the health pack, and then take the high ground position here, which is really good for Ana. Otherwise, they can just take the long route and go all the way back. Another really good position for snipers and Ana is over here in the back, which I will show you in a second. Behind this little rock here, which I will also show you in a second. And some people tend to defend on the point, but from the point you're for one very vulnerable from the main choke and from the window, so that's not really the best spot. So if you're a Widowmaker, then this spot up here is obviously great. You know, it's really good high ground and you can use this corner to hide behind. The problem with this is that this spot isn't, like, you can't really get there as Ana, so that's the reason that Anas don't stand there. But as Widowmaker, this is really good, or as Hanzo, and you should definitely use it. So if you're playing Ana or Soldier, then this spot behind here is really good, because again, you have the cover here, and you know that you have the small little health pack back here that you can use, and then there's one back here. So this is, like, in my opinion, this is the best spot for Ana, because if you just look at this, you can see your people at the front. So you have really good vision, and the distance is huge, so you're in no danger. Also, in case one of the enemies uses the window, which I'm going to show you later, then they have no vision of this position. So, in my opinion, if you're playing Ana, then this is debatably the best spot that you can stand in. Another spot that you can use is standing here on the point, but the problem with that is that, you know, and I'm going to show you that later again, you're very, very vulnerable to the window position. So if the enemies, they can simply pick something like Widowmaker and they can pick you immediately. Also, if the enemies tend to rush in, then you're also super, super vulnerable. So if you're playing something like Ana, if you're playing something that wants to stay at long range and, you know, not really risking anything. For example, Zenyatta as well. Like, Zenyatta has no damage fall-off. Zenyatta in this position is also really, really great, and you should definitely consider him there. Now, the main reason people use this window is because it's elevated from the main attack point. So if you usually you have a Reinhardt that is standing over there. Wait, let me activate this. So you have your Reinhardt standing over there, right? And you can't really get past this. So everyone who is standing inside of this box is basically unhittable. However, if you're from this elevated position, you get access to people on the point, and this box, you know, because of the angle that you're looking at, it shrinks, which makes it a lot easier to get picks. So even characters like Soldier, for example, can benefit from this, and this is especially good if you don't have something like a McCree that can simply flashbang the shield away. However, the problem that I was mentioning is that even if you stand over here, it can be very difficult to hit the Ana that is standing on the right side here. So this is another reason why this spot is really, really good for Ana and Zenyatta and characters like this. However, if you are having trouble with this choke, then you should definitely play around with this position. Maybe not as a tank, but even Roadhog, for example, at least right now, I don't know how it's going to be after the patch, can get some really sneaky hooks over the Reinhardt shield. And obviously he's elevated, so actually killing them is a little bit more difficult. However, simply hooking them here and then letting them drop down behind their team usually leads to a kill. So if you're playing Roadhog, then it may be better to just stand up here, destroy the Reinhardt shield, and try to go for some cheeky hooks instead of standing at the bottom ground. Also, if the enemies tend to get a pick and they have a Reinhardt who has his ultimate, they 10 out of 10 times are going to capitalize on that. And standing in this position makes you invulnerable to things like Zarya ultimates or Reinhardt ultimates. So this is also something that you should consider. A very popular flanking position, especially for characters like Genji, D.Va, Hanzo, or Winston, is to go via the top left window. This position, however, is incredibly risky. It can be very beneficial because if you just look at this, you have vision over this area down here, you have vision over the high ground here. If you stand over here, you even have vision of the high ground up there. You have perfect vision of the entire high ground up here, maybe not after the wall, but it's still pretty good. You can even look over here a little bit, and the primary part where this position is so sick in terms of vision is you have perfect vision of the point and this little spot over here. And the problem with this position is, obviously, if you can see them, then they can see you. And these are just so many points of attack that can screw you over. So, for example, maybe a Torbjorn has his turret over here, maybe Ana is standing over there, maybe you have a Roadhog who's back here, maybe you have a Soldier who's standing either here or, you know, up on the roof. And this position is incredibly vulnerable. And if you're playing something like Winston or Genji, you need to be really, really close. So you should definitely consider when to take this spot. In my opinion, you should take this route on the first point. If you have something like a Reinhardt or a Zarya that can force a fight over here, and you either want to distract them and, you know, maybe lure them out of their position, or you want to do a little pincer movement. So, for example, very popular from back then is running D.Va Genji, or something like D.Va Winston at the moment even. Both of them go over here, over the window, while the main choke is being ulted. And then, you know, maybe the Reinhardt is holding his shield up and it's covering the choke, so they're pretty safe in there. But then you and Winston come from the back and you can just smite them. And most of the time this isn't enough to just kill the entire enemy team, but this easily gets you 2 or 3 picks. So it also surprises the enemy, because most of the time they think, oh, you know, we have our Reinhardt shield up, our Mei wall is up as well. This gives them a false sense of security. So coordinate with your Zarya especially, or your Reinhardt, and make sure that they tell you when they're about to ult, because you can ult at any point in time and really apply some pressure. Even with stuff like D.Va's ultimate, you can really outplay them. Let us gloss over this part of the map, because in my opinion it is very, very undervalued. The problem with this is, usually, if you manage to break through the choke up here, if you can see it, most of the enemies are dead, so you don't need the advantages that this route provides you. But this long road over here, let me just quickly trace it for you, either like this or like this, but we will go over that soon, is super, super safe, okay? So, for one, going via this route means that you get map control of this big health pack over here, this health pack down here, and this small health pack down here, which is amazing. Also, if you don't have control of the point yet and they are fortified, it's pretty difficult to see, but this is actually like a small slope even. So you have a bit of high ground advantage, and while this can be considered a choke, okay, red is kind of difficult to see here. I'm sorry, I'm actually going to switch to, like, I don't know, pink. Okay, there we go. That doesn't help, but it's you get what I mean. So I really like this position and this way of attacking. However, the biggest problem is just pure time. But this makes it an excellent flanking position. You can see that you can actually, like behind the half pack, you can actually drop down. And then all of a sudden you're behind them and you can just ninja cap. So this route that I just showed you is amazing for flankers. It's easily the strongest flanker position ever. If you're playing Tracer or Genji and you manage to get over here, even if the enemies notice you, they're either going to chase after you, which relieves pressure from your teammates at the main choke, or they don't chase you and you have, you have a free reign. So as long as the enemies don't have like a tourbillon turret or a Symmetra turret back there, which usually they don't have anyways, they usually just try to protect the main choke. So most of the times the tourbillon turrets are like back here and the Symmetra turrets are around here. So the reason why this is really good for flankers is because I showed you earlier that you have so many health packs, which means that especially like Genji's biggest problem when flanking is that once he takes damage, he can't really do much. Like a Genji with 120 HP isn't going to take any fights anytime soon. However, this way he can even prepare for stuff like his ultimates, and he's always full HP. And there's nothing more annoying than defending the choke over here, and a Genji ninja capping, or a D.Va ninja capping, or a Winston ninja capping. It doesn't really matter. Because these flanker characters, they're useless at the choke. A lot of the time I see characters like Tracer or D.Va, they're standing at the choke, they're not really doing anything, and they're just waiting for an opener, whereas they could just use their time to take this route, and as soon as they get to the point, they just completely take all pressure away. But sometimes it may be better to not go on the point immediately. So for example, if the enemies have an Ana here, I'm just going to mark that as red, let's say an Ana is over here, then you can abuse this position to either annoy the crap out of her and come from behind, or in most cases you can even kill her. And as soon as the enemy Ana is dead, not only do you relieve that pressure from the main choke, you can just go into a full engage and the enemies just don't have the healing to come against this. So if you're having a flanker and you're having trouble going through this main choke because there are some Symmetra turrets, there are tourbillon turrets, there's a Bastion even. Like so many people tell me that they have issues with these characters on these maps. Just try to coordinate a flanker, maybe even two, who take this route, and you won't have any issues at all because you just completely mess up their target priority, and all of a sudden they're being attacked from two positions, if they anticipate it and if they prepare for it, then yes, they can deal with it most of the time. But here's the deal: they need to predict it, so it's kind of like a gamble, because if they prepare for this, then they're giving up forces that they could use at the main choke, and then you can just attack the main choke anyways. It's kind of like rock paper scissors. Only that you can, choose rock, paper, scissors after you've seen what they've done. And this is the reason why I really like this position. Now, there are three primary ways of taking the point PB on Hanamura, and all points are equally viable. So I'm also using the color green. This is the attacking team. It's just that you can't really see red because of the Sakura trees and whatever. So route number one is going via the left side. This route is extremely limited and I'm going to show it to you later, but the enemies never expect it. You need some sort of verticality, but you can use a character like Mei to circumvent that, and I'm going to show you that later. The second route is the main route, and the only time that this route should be used if you want to snowball. So for instance, if you took the first point, you killed off the enemy stragglers, people who spawned wrong, you have your ultimate advantage, and you just want to get on the point as fast as possible. In this case, going via main is the best route, because the enemies can't set up for the high ground. If they set up for the high ground, so I'm going to show you the two in the top left, then in my opinion the only viable route of attacking is top right, which is over here. Top right is basically your default. You should always go top right if something isn't working, because it's just, you're taking away the best enemy position and you aren't vulnerable to high ground since you're attacking via the high ground. But let's go into this in a bit more detail. Okay, first of all, let's have a look at the left part of the map. Now, obviously crossing this part or this part requires some sort of verticality. So unless you are a Mercy who can follow a Genji and maybe a Winston and a D.Va, you won't really be able to get there. One interesting thing to note is though that Lucio can actually wall right over here if he wants to. But that's not what I'm talking about. The best way to get over this is actually to use a Mei wall. So you can simply put a Mei wall up here. Actually, let me do that, come on. We have time. We can do this in blue. So this looks a little bit better. So okay, so just imagine it. You know, you can use that little ledge over here so that it doesn't start in oblivion, and then you have this little floating kind of ice wall, and you can use that to get your entire team over here. This takes a little bit of setup, and obviously you need a Mei on attack. So this strat is really cheesy, but it works. Like, if you actually manage to pull it off, this strategy works. So if you're running a 6-stack, and you know you want to get a little funky, definitely try practicing that, and trust me, you will surprise your enemies. Especially if you snowball. So if the enemies can take the top right high ground, again I'm going to show that to you, then it's a little bit more difficult because this left side approach, you know, is kind of hard. But it's really, really surprising, and most people just, you know, they don't anticipate it. Also, you have two possible routes once you're here. You can send the snipers, for example, up there on the high ground so that they can, you know, try to snipe and get a pick or whatever. You also have access to the big health pack over here, which again helps you. So this is also one of the reasons why this is such an excellent flanking spot, because you can go via the door in the bottom. Now, I don't recommend going via the door in the bottom for, you know, you basically have the worst position ever down there. I'm going to show that to you as well. But if you're a flanker, then this may be a very viable alternative. So definitely consider using this kind of mate cheese if you're really, really struggling. And, you know, you just think to yourself, okay, we're going to lose the point anyways. I can just try my best. So really just keep this in consideration. I'm also going a bit into, you know, why the lower side, by the left, is a little wonky. You would exit. Wait, let me change this to white. There we go. So you would exit from down there. Now the problem with this, right here, you're just sitting ducks for the people who are standing at the high ground, you know, and they're just pewing you down there. If you are fast enough, you know, you can get below the bridge and at around right here, which forces them to drop down. The problem with that is you can just go via main and then take this route over here, and then you're here as well without going this risky road. So this is the reason why this kind of sucks. It can be good to divert your attention, but it's not really worth it. So let me delete that, and let's go over main. So main is really only useful if you want to snowball, and the main reason is again this high ground up here. So if the enemies die, then it can be pretty difficult to set up there, and it can be hard to, you know, kind of get them away. So if you are running like something like a Reinhardt, you can just safely go main, and the reason for that is, if you are standing on the point, and Reinhardt has his barrier up, like here maybe, so, you know, here are the teammates, and they're being barriered from above, so the pew doesn't go through, like that. The enemies are forced to drop down, so their high ground position doesn't actually do anything. Because, you know, you're just capturing the point. They can try to get the Reinhardt shield down really quickly, but in the end, you're going to force them to drop down. You can actually kind of accelerate that process with the D.Va, who's just, you know, flying through the window up here, and then pressuring them, pushing them down. So that's one of the things that you can do as well. So this is the reason why main can work, but it requires a lot of coordination. If the enemies start to set up, then it can be really difficult to even get past this position here. Especially if the enemies are standing up here. So this little bucket here is actually an excellent position if you want to defend the point. And in my opinion, it's the best position for characters like Soldier or McCree, for example. So if you want to defend the point, actually let me delete some of this because this is starting to get a little food and people have been complaining about that in the comments. Okay, this is just ignore the dots. So I'm talking about this position up here. The main reason is if they decide to push main, then they need to make a decision. Either they shield this side, so they aren't vulnerable, or they're using the shield from behind, so they're not vulnerable to you. So this is really annoying. The only way to circumvent that is by having a D.Va up here who simply pushes you away. But then again, the enemies are investing resources just to get you away, and most of the time you can just escape. Or characters like Soldier, they can usually even fight the D.Va, so they're just losing their D.Va mech. So if you're defending, this position is really great for hit scan. Obviously, the second best position is the high ground, and the main reason for that is that the main way of attacking, or like the most popular way of attacking, is using the right side. So if we look at the picture from earlier, then we can go via the left with the little cheese. We can go main to snowball, and again, the reason why we only use it to snowball is so that the enemies don't have the setup time to, you know, get behind here. But this is the way where, you know, you've been trying to get to the point for some time and it's just not working. This is usually the default you go to. Now, the main problem with this is this little, you know, choke area down here. And actually, let me switch to that. Okay, there we go. So this is the little choke area that I was talking about. So the problem with this is, if the enemies have a Reinhardt, and trust me, they're so going to have a Reinhardt at this point, this is an entire corridor for his Fire Strike. So you're basically, I've seen games where Reinhardts were actually getting flippin' quad kills with one Fire Strike just shooting straight down there and getting their ultimate from like 30% to 100%. So what I'm trying to say with this is, this position, you need to act really, really quickly. So you have the little health pack over here, which you can use to like replenish before the fight. But if you decide to go over here, the biggest problem that I see when people are using this is a lack of commitment. All you need to do, and by the way, a Lucio is basically mandatory on this map in case I haven't mentioned that yet. All you need to do is Lucio speed boost with the Reinhardt shield, with Zarya bubbles, with whatever, with D.Va just flying through, and then getting on that high ground as quickly as possible so that you can take that position away. And as soon as you take away their high ground, there's nothing you can do. You have the advantageous position. So from that point on, it's basically just about you winning a fight from a position that is destined for you to win the fight. It's basically designed for you to win the fight. So top right is all about commitment. If you are struggling, then just make sure that you're having a Lucio. It's like, it's universal. You don't need to understand English. As soon as you hear that speed boost and everyone is running faster, just run, and usually people will follow you. So this is by far the best route if you are having problems with solo queue. Don't try to force main. Main doesn't work. But obviously not everything is perfect with this route. And again, it's up to this little position up here that I was mentioning. For one, this window here makes you very, very vulnerable if you want to get to high ground. You're just going to give them ult charge, and it can be very difficult to get the enemies away from that position. So if one of the defenders is standing here, this can be annoying. And secondly, if you are deciding to push up here because you're trying to be really fast, and the Mei is standing here, like, right, so here's a Mei, she can just cut you off. And the only way to circumvent that is to get something like a D.Va, for example, or a Winston, who are going in, right? They're baiting the Mei wall out, and then they just try to exit via the window here. This is also for the first point. If you're having trouble with Mei walls, just play something like Winston or D.Va, walk in without using your abilities, and as soon as you hear that wall placed, just jump over the wall back. And then you have like a 10-second window that you can use in order to push in. So the best way to counter this top right push is with a Mei, but you need to be certain that the enemies aren't baiting you. So only use your wall when you see like 2 to 3 enemies at least who have passed across it. And then let your team know that they need to push in from the top and actually capitalize on that. Okay, so for the end, let's very quickly summarize the first and the second point. So this, I need to activate drawing. This is so difficult, people. Okay, this position up here with the high ground going via the back is the best route for flankers, or if you're really, really committing to having time. Mainly if the enemies are capitalizing on the high ground over here, or there's an Ana in that position over here. Going via main should only be used if you have a very heavy pick or ultimate advantage. Otherwise, going main is kind of suicidal, just going right through here. Usually the enemies can just cut you off, mainly with a Mei wall that's blocking you. However, if you decide to push in via main because you have the advantage, what I see a lot of people do is they spark into this area here as the attacker. Don't do that, like you don't have to. Just immediately get straight on the point. By going over here and the enemies are still alive, you'll just end up standing over here and you're like sitting ducks because you're in the middle of the enemies who are standing over here, and you're standing and you're, you know, the reinforcements are coming from this side in case you had a pick advantage. So whatever you do, don't run this way, it's just suicide. If you manage to break the choke, just get straight onto the point. Go main only if you want to snowball and you know that the enemies don't have the high ground. You can go left side if you are a flanker or if you want to try the main cheese. And top right is your default, but when you go top right, make sure that you aren't getting baited by stuff like Mei wards, and make sure that you are committing so that the enemies don't get free ultimate charge from you, and so that they don't, like, that they can't pick you 1v1. Okay, so I hope that this maybe helped you look at how to defend and, you know, how to attack Hanamura a little better. If you have any questions about this map, then just feel free to ask them. Keep in mind that Hanamura is really retarded, nobody really likes it, nobody likes 2CP anyways. So your best bet usually is to just go Symmetra on the first point and try to defend the first point. And, you know, Hanamura is usually a draw anyways. So if you really have a good Symmetra or a good Reinhardt or something like that, and you know that you can defend the first hold, then that's sadly kind of what happens at the moment, because Hanamura relies a lot on getting picks, but it's very difficult to get picks if you have a Symmetra teleport on the defending side and like 3 tanks. So nobody likes Hanamura TLDR. I hope that this helped you. Leave your comments down below. My name is Shoutout, and I'd like to thank you for learning.